Alright, so by now, you've heard the news. Messi, the greatest footballer in history, maybe the greatest sportsman in history, is now saying deuces to PSG after 2 years, and has decided to take his talents to South Beach. A sensational move, considering the alternatives was a return to his beloved Barcelona, or receiving Scrooge McDuck money from the Saudis. This man could have been worshipped as a god in Spain, or chauffeured around in a golden-plated Rolls-Royce in Riyadh. But instead, he's driving himself around Miami and picking up groceries at the local Publix. Which, kudos to him. That's honestly the most authentic American experience you can get. Respect. But Messi would not be the first soccer great that would grace our shores with the hopes of redefining soccer to a country who for so long has seen the world's game as a joke. In fact, there's been a laundry list of all-time greats who played in the American leagues dating back all the way to the 1970s. But I believe, when you really boil it down, there were 3 seismic spikes when it comes to America's interest in soccer, and they were created by 3 major imports. Sexy underwear model David Beckham, the OG GOAT Pele, and now, of course, the living god of football, and Lucky Charms enthusiast, Lionel Messi. And what's wild is you can trace a domino effect leading all the way back to when Pele first decided to come to America in the 1970s, which would then pave the path for Sexy Bexy to join the MLS decades later, which unforeseen at the time would be crucial to luring Lionel Messi to the States. Stay with me, I'll explain, but first, I have to take you back to 1975, when the New York Cosmos pulled off maybe the greatest transfer coup of the millennia, when they announced Brazilian great Pele would be coming to America. Now, it wasn't easy getting Pele over to the States. At this point in his career, he had already retired, having led his country to 3 World Cup titles, and having won everything with Santos in Brazil. But apparently, the pitch that changed Pele's mind was he was told that if he went to Real or AC Milan, all he could do was win another championship. But if he came to America, he could win over a nation. They saw him as a soccer missionary that would revolutionize the sport in the eyes of Americans. The goal? To make soccer as big in America as it was in Europe and South America. And bringing the GOAT over would certainly draw up interest. It also didn't hurt that they offered him a $2 million contract, an astronomical amount at the time. For comparison, the top U.S. athlete was baseball player Hank Aaron, and he was getting paid a measly $200K a year. Not only was it a good chunk of change, Pele was also financially hurting at the time because of a few business ventures that went south in Brazil, and his 3-year contract with New York would see him earn more in those 3 years than he had earned the entirety of his time in Brazil. And to ensure that the Brazilian was paying the smallest amount of tax, the Cosmos drew up some wacky contracts, including one which he signed where he was listed as a recording artist. Gotta love tax loopholes, baby. And then there was the allure of American culture. All the famous movie stars and musicians that he would constantly be rubbing elbows with at the famed Studio 54 nightclub. For younger viewers, Studio 54 is this legendary New York nightclub renowned for sex, drugs, and all forms of debauchery, with only the most beautiful and famous people in New York getting in. Its guest list was so exclusive that a man once tried to sneak in through an air vent, got stuck, and died. And during his 3-year stay, Pele and his teammates were reportedly regulars at this notorious New York night spot. But even with Pele tempted by the glitz and glam of the Big Apple, Brazil was not yet ready to let their favorite son go. In fact, the Brazilian government went as far as deeming Pele a national treasure and forbid him from leaving his homeland. It took famed political negotiator and Nobel Peace Prize winner Henry Kissinger to persuade the Brazilian government that Pele playing in America would actually be beneficial for both countries. Can you imagine having the guy who negotiated the end of the Vietnam War has to talk to your president in order to let you play in New York? Shit was wild in the 70s. Now, you also might be asking, who the fuck are the New York Cosmos? Because I've never heard of this MLS team. Well, that's because they weren't in the MLS. They were part of the now defunct National American Soccer League, also known as NASL. But it looks like nasal. I mean, come on, guys. This is awful marketing. And before Pele, nasal was struggling. In fact, soccer as a whole in this country was seen as a foreigner's game. One sports writer went as far as to write, and I quote, "Soccer is a game for commies and fairies in short pants." Once again, 70s was wild in America. So how much did Pele coming over change public interest in the sport? Well, to this day, it still is not nearly as popular of a sport as it is in South America and Europe, but Pele did create a huge draw everywhere he went. In fact, during his first public appearance in Boston, it was so crazy that Pele got injured by a group of fans and had to be evacuated from the venue via a stretcher. And although he was well past his prime, Pele did succeed in drastically raising awareness of soccer, regularly drawing in huge crowds of up to 80,000 people, selling out NFL stadiums. Every city, every town that he visited, it would be a sold-out crowd, and he'd be the sports story of the week. While the front pages of the New York Times would be dominated by Son of Sam killings and corruption charges, the back pages would be reserved for the Cosmos. And in fact, going to a Cosmo game became the trendy thing to do in New York at the time. But it didn't translate to instant success on the pitch. In fact, the New York Cosmos were kind of trash before Pele got there. In fact, they didn't even make the playoffs in his first season. And yes, American soccer leagues have playoffs. I know it's weird for my European viewers, but hey, they also have penalty shootouts like this. Which, I mean, come on. You wouldn't want penalty shootouts to look like this? Playoffs, I don't know. But shootouts, come on. Back to the Cosmos. Their supporting cast wasn't great around Pele at first, because here's the thing. The allure of playing with the GOAT tends to attract some great players to his side, and soon they came. Lazio legend Giorgio Chinaglia would sign for the Cosmos in his prime and would actually go down as the New York Cosmos all-time goal scorer. Then Pele's old Brazilian teammate and World Cup winning captain Carlos Alberto would soon join after, followed by the signing of fellow World Cup winner Franz Beckenbauer. Pele said of the Cosmos, "When I signed with the Cosmos were almost a university team. Later on, we became the best team almost in the world. After we got some excellent players, then the Cosmos became number one." And with their roster transformed into the American Galacticos, Pele, in his third and final season, would lead his team finally into the Soccer Bowl, where in front of a capacity nearly 80,000 crowd. He would score a hat-trick in the quarterfinals and then lead his team to a 2-1 victory over the Seattle Sounders to capture the 1977 National Championship. During his final match, in which he played the first half with his Brazilian side Santos and then the second half with the New York Cosmos, he sold out Giant Stadium again, which included the star-studded likes of Muhammad Ali, Henry Kissinger, Steven Spielberg, Barbra Streisand, and even the president's son, who after the game would read off a personal letter written by the president of the United States thanking Pele for elevating soccer to heights never before seen in the United States. Pele's time in America would also pave the way for other soccer legends to join Nassau. Iconic names like George Best, Gerd Müller, Bobby Moore, Eusebio, Johan Cruyff. Basically any player who had an old FIFA Legends card, yeah, they probably donned a nasal kit during the twilights of their careers. But sadly, it wouldn't be enough, because after Pele's retirement, attendance and interest in the league would nosedive. And when combined with the economic recession of the 1980s, Nasal would close up shop in 1984. And this could easily have been the death knell for soccer in America. But a stroke of luck would reignite interest in the game in 1988, when FIFA would announce that the United States of America would host the 1994 World Cup. Pele had demonstrated that soccer could be a big enough draw in America if given the right conditions. And FIFA's hunch was correct, as the 1994 World Cup was a surprise smash success in the States. In fact, it still holds multiple records to this date for the largest attendances of any World Cup in history. The opening ceremony was emceed by Oprah, attended by then President Bill Clinton, and featured a performance by legendary recording artist Diana Ross, where she was supposed to kick a ball into an exploding goal, but missed it completely, only for the goal to explode anyway. Amazing. The USA vs. Brazil match was watched by over 11 million Americans on television. And here's the thing that isn't commonly known, but in exchange for hosting the World Cup in '94, the United States promised FIFA that they would develop a Division I soccer league. That league, as you probably have guessed it, was the MLS. And carried by the buzz of the 1994 World Cup, the MLS experienced a relatively successful first season. But after that, it kind of went to shit. Interest and attendance would take a sharp decline, and during its first 5 years, the MLS lost a reported $250 million. And that total would balloon to more than $340 million between its founding in 1993 to 2004. It was hemorrhaging money out their butthole. And if nothing changed, it was looking like the MLS would go the same way as Nasal. The league needed a miracle, which they would receive in the form of a sexy British underwear model. As the next cosmic shift when it came to American interest in soccer was the blockbuster arrival of David Beckham to the LA Galaxy in 2007. Like Pele, he was past his prime, but was easily the most recognizable soccer player in America at the time. And to prime away from Real Madrid, where he was earning $20 million a year, to go to a salary cap league where he'd only be paid $6.5 million a year, it was quite the coup. Now, if you dive a little bit deeper in the contract, you'll come to find out that he actually was getting a percentage cut of all club revenue. That means from jersey sales to ticket sales to TV deals, all the way down to the hot dog that was sold to you at the stadium. Sexy Bexy got his beak wet on all of it. And the second important clause was upon his retirement, he was allowed to purchase an MLS expansion team for the flat fee of only $25 million. Remember that clause for later. So with the revenue sharing and the sponsorship deals, Beckham's contract would balloon from $6.5 million to more around the $50 million range, which easily doubled what he was making over at Real Madrid. And beyond the financial incentives, Beckham was pitched the same vision as Pele. Yes, he could have stayed at Real or gone to another European giant, but all he could do was win another trophy. Or he could come to America and win over a nation. And you also got to remember, he was married to Posh Spice, so the prospects of living in Beverly Hills and rubbing elbows with Hollywood movie stars probably made the wifey happy. So when David Beckham announced that he would be coming to America, it not only brought renewed interest and legitimacy to the MLS, it was a Hollywood bonanza. I mean, the man was inescapable on TV leading up to his debut. It made national news, and his wife, Victoria Beckham, actually got her own reality TV special on NBC, which was received horribly. But still, his debut was attended by a star-studded crowd that featured the likes of Tom Cruise, Katie Holmes, Will Smith, and the then governor at the time, Arnold Schwarzenegger. He didn't even start. He was nursing an ankle injury at the time, so the broadcast had a picture-in-picture of him stretching called Beckham Cam. He didn't even come on until the 77th minute. As for his performances on the pitch, David Beckham's first 2 seasons were as shit as his wife's reality TV show. The reason was he was hurt all the time. From 2007 to 2009, he played less than half of the LA Galaxy's matches. He missed so many games that rival fans hung a banner saying "Bench it like Beckham." Cute. And then he was criticized by Galaxy fans and allegedly butted heads with teammate Landon Donovan over his commitment to the team because he took multiple loan spells with AC Milan during the MLS's offseason, where in 2010, while on loan, he would snap his Achilles tendon, which not only made him miss time in the MLS, but actually was the cause for him missing his final World Cup. Heartbreaking. 3 years in, it seemed like Beckham's Hollywood experiment had become a horror movie. But as it was with Beckham in most of his career, redemption was always written into the third act. As in 2011 and 2012, Beckham would lead an LA Galaxy team featuring the likes of American legend Landon Donovan and all-time Irish goal scorer Robbie Keane to back-to-back MLS titles. It was glorious. Vindication for all those years, fighting through the injuries and silencing his most harsh critics. It had taken him a while, but David Beckham had gotten a storybook ending in Los Angeles. Now in totality, we look back on David Beckham's time in the MLS, it was a mixed bag. Ultimately, he didn't revolutionize soccer in America to the levels of the NFL, NBA, MLB, or even the NHL, but he definitely gave the MLS a level up. Now, it was kind of promised that he was going to take the MLS from Charmander to Charizard, and what we had to settle with was Charmeleon. And while he didn't score often, when he did, a couple of them were bangers, and started the trend of expensive European imports scoring worldies from the halfway line in the MLS. Yeah, you'll see what I'm talking about later. Undoubtedly, David Beckham elevated the legitimacy and status of the MLS for the rest of the world, upping the standards of the league from the stadiums to the salaries to the quality of food players would receive. All this happened because of Beckham, and set the table for many more legends to come to America after he left. Ballon d'Or winners, Champions League winners, and World Cup winners would follow in Beckham's footsteps. In fact, how about a guy who won all 3? Brazilian legend Kaká, one of the greatest attacking midfielders in history, one of the few players in history to win a World Cup, Champions League, and a Ballon d'Or, would play for Orlando FC. And during his 3 seasons there, they sucked dick. Which wasn't his fault, just the team was a new expansion team, they were awful. But Kaká was fantastic, showed very well for himself, got a bunch of assists, got a bunch of goals, and I mean, just watch some of these bangers. Chelsea legend and Nobel Peace Prize winner Didier Drogba, who came over for 2 seasons and played for the Montreal Impact, scoring 21 goals in 33 matches. And then there was David Villa, who was Man City's sister club, New York City FC's first signing, and what a signing it was, as he would go down as one of the greatest imports the MLS has ever seen. The World Cup, Euro, La Liga, and Champions League winner would bag 80 goals during his 124 appearances for New York, and continued the tradition of European legends scoring from the halfway line in the MLS. In fact, frankly, his highlight reel from his time in the MLS is ridiculous. He was scoring for fun. A not-so-good import, though, was World Cup winner and multi-time Serie A winner Andres Pirlo, who was bought by New York City FC, and he just looked like he didn't give a shit. I mean, he got a couple of nice assists here and there, but most of the time he just looked disinterested and disengaged. He really treated the league like a retirement league. And another New York FC signing, Frank Lampard, came with a bit of controversy. Because first it was announced that he was signing for New York FC before the parent club, Man City, reverse uno'd and kept Frank in England for what was first announced as a short-term loan, which was then extended to a full-season loan, which meant that Frank would miss the first half of the MLS season. And a lot of people bought season tickets expecting Frank. They didn't get Frank, and they were pissed. Over 300 people ended up asking for the season ticket refunds and accused the club of false advertising. But when he eventually did make his way to New York, he had an okay MLS career. He scored 15 goals and had 3 assists in 31 matches. Thierry Henry, one of the greatest strikers of all time, World Cup winner, part of the Arsenal Invincibles, would go ahead and sign for the New York Red Bulls in 2010. Now, after a 3-year stint with Barcelona, he once again was past his prime, but his MLS career was solid, scoring 10-plus goals in every season he played, for a total of 51 goals and 42 assists in 122 appearances for the club. And even though he was past his athletic prime, his finishing was still world-class. Man United's all-time goal scorer Wayne Rooney had an okay 2 years with DC United, scoring 23 goals and notching 14 assists in 48 appearances. And yes, he was yet another notable European who scored yet another wonder goal from the halfway line. I don't know what they're putting in the water over there. And apparently he enjoyed his time in America enough, he would come back across the pond to coach the Chicago Fire, where as of this video, he is still the manager. Then there were the stars who followed David Beckham directly. Liverpool legend and Champions League winner Steven Gerrard was signed as the big name follow-up upon Beckham's retirement. And at the age of 35, he was well past his prime. Yeah, after a mid-season that saw him bag 3 goals and 9 assists, he announced his retirement in 2016. So the next big star the LA Galaxy went after was Zlatan Ibrahimovic. And Zlatan did Zlatan things in the MLS. When it was announced in 2018 that he would be signing for the Galaxy, he took out a full-page ad in the LA Times that simply read, "Dear Los Angeles, you're welcome." And he did not disappoint, as his first goal in the MLS was a wonder strike in a 4-3 comeback in the inaugural El Trafico versus crosstown rivals LAFC. And yes, you guessed it, it was pretty much from the halfway line. Honestly, his MLS goal compilation is ridiculous. The man put on a show for the 2 seasons stateside, scoring 52 goals in 56 appearances. And upon him leaving LA, he said, "Thank you, LA Galaxy, for making me feel alive again. To the Galaxy fans, you wanted Zlatan, I gave you Zlatan. You're welcome." Now go back to watching baseball. But these moves all pale in comparison to Lionel Messi choosing to sign with Inter Miami. Now remember that clause that allowed David Beckham to purchase an expansion team for $25 million? Well, a recent valuation of an MLS expansion will put that price tag today at $500 million. This clause was not only a steal, but it also set off a chain of events that would lead Lionel Messi to joining the MLS nearly 20 years later, as after years and years of trying to find the right partners and a site to build a new stadium, David Beckham would finally launch Inter Miami in 2018. In a star-studded video of soccer players and friends of Beckham's congratulating him, one of those faces was one Lionel Messi, who mused in his message, "Who knows, maybe one day, in a couple of years, I'll give you a call." Little did we know how prophetic those words would come to be. But the true courtship really began in 2019 in a hotel room in Barcelona, when David Beckham and co-founder of Inter Miami, Jorge Mas, would meet Jorge Messi, Lionel Messi's father. Now, Papa Messi had revealed that Lionel had long held aspirations to play in America one day, and Beckham played a big role in that. They had seen what Beckham's arrival had done, and Messi enjoyed the idea of growing a sport in one of the biggest sports markets in the world. But this was merely an introduction. At the time, Messi was going through a tumultuous breakup with his beloved Barcelona that would see him exiled to Paris for 2 difficult years, where he was never fully embraced by the fans, and some could argue that the feelings were mutual. And while Beckham will get most of the credit for bringing Messi to Miami, it was really Jorge Mas who did most of the legwork. Mas was the one who kept in contact with Messi's father throughout the years, monitoring the situation at PSG, and got cozy enough with the fam that he was seen in Lionel Messi's luxury box at the World Cup. Messi would famously go on to win that World Cup final, and when he returned to PSG, where they saw an unfortunate early exit from the Champions League, the fans in Paris would turn against the Argentine. It became very obvious that the relationship between him and PSG just never was going to work. And so, at the end of the club season, the biggest story in the world would then turn to where was Lionel Messi going to play next. Now, many pegged a reunion with Barcelona as his most likely destination. Messi was still adored at the club, where he had won 10 La Liga titles and 4 Champions League trophies. And despite their financial issues, Barcelona had pulled off a miraculous turnaround this year, winning La Liga. But then there was the Saudi League, and they had just signed Ronaldo to a reported $230 million per year contract. And seeing as they had just bought the sport of golf, and was reportedly insanely jealous of Qatar hosting the World Cup, the prospect of landing Messi and having that Ronaldo versus Messi showdown at least twice a year would have been an insane boon to a league that had very little legitimacy before signing Ronaldo. And to lure the GOAT to the desert once again, they reportedly offered Lionel Messi a package that in total would have netted the Argentine $1.6 billion during his time in Saudi Arabia. The man could have played for Al Hilal and bailed out Barcelona at the same time. And then some people didn't discount the fact that he might just stay at PSG, who, might remind you, are owned by the Qataris. You know, the guys who bought the World Cup. They could offer up monopoly money themselves. Plus, he still hadn't fulfilled his promise of helping them win their first Champions League trophy. In fact, the year before Messi got there, PSG was in the finals. And the 2 subsequent years after Messi joined, they were bounced out of the round of 16 in back-to-back years. The rumor that he might join the MLS was frankly a pipe dream. You're going to tell me the GOAT is going to go join a last-place MLS team over going back to his beloved Barcelona or getting Elon Messi in Saudi Arabia, a country that already signed him to a deal to be their cultural ambassador? Why would he come to America? Why, indeed. While the full details of the contract are yet to be disclosed, Jorge Mas and MLS worked hard to put together a package worthy to entice the GOAT to the American shores. What was reportedly offered was similar in form to Beckham's contract so many years ago in the MLS. An equity stake in Inter Miami, a chance to buy an expansion team for a heavily discounted rate upon him leaving the MLS, revenue sharing with sponsors, specifically a percentage of all merchandise sold by league sponsor Adidas, who Messi has a lifetime contract with, and let's be honest, probably the biggest player in luring Lionel Messi over to America is Apple. Yes, the richest corporation in America, who had recently partnered with the MLS to stream all their games on their newish Apple TV platform. And apparently these iPhone motherfuckers came in and offered Messi a cut of every new subscriber to their MLS package. And yeah, it probably didn't hurt that. They're also the ones who are producing a Last Dance-esque miniseries documenting Lionel Messi's miraculous World Cup run in Qatar this past year. And I, for one, cannot wait. But those were just the financial incentives. You gotta remember, Messi already has smog levels of money, and whatever Inter Miami or even Apple could offer still wouldn't hold a candle to what the Saudis could. So Jorge Mas still had a little bit of convincing to do, and reportedly during his final pitch, he would sell the Messi clan on Miami and America. One of those points being, Miami is only a 9-hour flight to Buenos Aires, Argentina, and you compare that to the 13.5 hours it would take from Barcelona to Buenos Aires, and then the 20 hours it would have been from Riyadh. Well, yeah, it's no contest. If Messi ever wanted to visit family, he'd be there in less than half a day. It also doesn't hurt that Miami is quite culturally diverse, with a rich and historic Latin American community baked into its DNA. And remember when Messi and his dad got into a little bit of trouble in Spain for tax evasion? Well, that won't be an issue here, because Miami is in Florida. No income tax, baby! It was as if Miami was custom built just for Messi. But ultimately, the main pitch was the same for Messi as it was for Pele and Beckham before him. Jorge laid it out, what Pele coming to America had done for the sport in the United States, how Beckham had taken it to yet another level in 2007. And now, with Lionel Messi 5 months fresh off of winning a World Cup, still one of the best players in the world, his introduction to America could take the sport to another stratosphere. Simply, America offered him something that Europe or the Middle East couldn't, the chance to win over one of the biggest sports markets in the world that has never been truly conquered by a soccer player. Jorge said to Messi's father, "How many times in a lifetime do you get the opportunity to change a sport? There will be a before Messi and after Messi in America." And that was enough to convince him, as Messi would go on to shock the world by announcing that he would be taking his talents to South Beach. And what's crazy was this even came as a shock to Inter Miami, as apparently when Messi made this announcement, they had no official contract worked out. Inter Miami actually had to send out a public statement saying that even though they were pleased to hear of Messi's intentions of joining Miami, they still had no formal agreement. In the days that followed after the announcement, Messi would hold an interview with Spanish media, where it revealed that it came down to 2 clubs, Inter Miami and his beloved Barcelona. And he said, given the right circumstances, he wanted it to be Barcelona. But given the unceremonious way that he was treated while he exited the club, the way some at the club tried to smear his character in the press, and the financial issues that made it impossible for them to register him in La Liga, financial issues that still haven't really improved since he left, well, it made his decision clear. Messi said on the situation that he could never put himself or his family in a situation again where their fate would be left in someone else's hands. And just like that, the greatest player the world's game has ever seen joined a last-place team in the MLS. They would iron out all the details of the contract, and shortly after, Messi was seen buying Captain Crunch at a Florida Publix. As of this video, the future is uncertain. As mentioned, he is joining an Inter Miami team whose roster is dog shit. But it's funny how history has a way of repeating itself, or at least rhyming. When Pele joined the Cosmos, he famously described them as a university team. The LA Galaxy struggled mightily in Beckham's first couple seasons. So I wouldn't expect silverware for Inter Miami anytime soon, despite all of Messi's accolades and abilities. But the cavalry is already on the way. Sergio Busquets and Jordi Alba are going to be signing for Miami, with the biter Luis Suarez expressing interest as well. And there's been a couple of whispers that even Neymar might be tempted to reunite MSN in South Beach. Now, I have no clue how they can sign all these players because the MLS designated player rule only allows 3 players per team to not count against the salary cap, but I'm sure the MLS can change that rule. They'd be dumb not to. Hell, pull Iniesta and Piqué out of retirement. Why not? Oh my god, as I'm finishing up writing this, reports have surfaced that Iniesta is signing with Inter Miami on a free. I don't know what witchcraft Jorge Mas and Apple cast on the Messi clan, but brother, this is gonna be fucking awesome. They have gone full Barcelona rebuild, and I love it. Consider my tickets bought when he comes to New York. See me at the game. And as I'm finishing up this video, Messi has made his MLS debut. What does he go and do? No, not a halfway volley, but an equally stunning 93rd minute free kick to win the game. And then he goes on and scores a brace before halftime in the first game that he captains. Stop it. I get it. I can see why all the Ronaldo fanboys claim that this is scripted as fuck, because how much more of a storybook year can one man have? Messi Mania is here. It has hit the States and is almost as hot as Arizona is right now. But only time will tell if the GOAT can take soccer to even the level of baseball in this country. So what does the future hold? If history has taught us anything, I think the MLS title will elude him for a year or two. But once he finishes up his Barca rebuild, it's only a matter of time before he conquers the MLS. But can he conquer America? Can he take soccer even to the heights of hockey by the time he leaves? I doubt it. But that's the thing. I'm just a fucking YouTuber. He's leaning on Messi. And he's always had a certain way of proving the doubters wrong. And that is going to be it for my history on all these soccer greats coming to America. Thank you guys all for watching. If you did enjoy, smush your hard wreck nipples into the like button right now. Helps me infinitely in this godforsaken algorithm. Thank you to Lewis, the homie, for editing this video. And of course, shout out to all my patrons. Keep me alive and well and keeping these videos turned out. I'd like to give a personal thank you to Chris Hu, Fritz, and John Petrick for being my GOAT tier patrons. And yeah, that's going to be it for me, the Fat Asian. Until next time, boys, stay thick.